All right, welcome to Inside the Huddle, brought to you by Romo Athletics and powered by the Rolla Athletic Booster Club. I'm your host, Tom Brown, and today we are joined by the legendary Bulldog Wrestling coach, Dennis Noel. Hey, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's get started off by just congratulating you and your team on the recent induction into the Hall of Fame. Now, it's tough when you have a career that you've had and the length of time, the success you had. Trying to pick one team out of there to bring in. But it was the 1985-86 wrestling team.
Yes.
And all of you got inducted together. That had to be just kind of a special day for you.
Oh, it was so special for us because being the type of sport we are, sometimes it's hard to get the publicity that you'd like for the kids. Mm-hmm. And we've always fought that, and we're continuing the good fight. But it was just such a blessing to be honored and know that people are paying attention.
Well, that was, again, it was one of the more successful groups that had come through there, especially at that time. It was, I guess, the most successful year that you had.
Well, we had 3 one-loss seasons. All 3 of those losses were to the state champions. And we would wrestle, bring in Jackson, who was a big but very athletic school, would bring in CBC out of Memphis.
Oh, wow.
And we'd bring in Wentzville, who was winning state now. There's no longer a Wentzville school. It's 3 schools they split. And then Helias won 10 or 12 state championships. So we had the toughest schedule we could. Matter of fact, Mike Jeffries, who coached Helias, grew up 1 block to the east of me. A Byland boy who won state at Jeff City in basketball grew up 1 block the other way. So we had a pretty good run out of that block.
Kind of like that Pennsylvania town where all the pro quarterbacks came from.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, Helias, the big time wrestling tradition there. Oh, Matt Paris, he's a wrestler from there.
Yeah.
Matt, sorry, friend of mine.
Yeah, I remember him. And the funny thing about Helias, when I was in high school in the early 70s, they had the same names were wrestling in the late 90s. They just kept having kids, and then their kids would wrestle, and their kids, which we're doing now with the Ridenauers and many others.
Yeah, having that tradition is great to see, and seeing them their siblings come in, and then you have them with even like the sisters now are wrestling.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I remember their older son was maybe oldest son's age, and then you're watching them kind of come through and having that success.
That girls wrestling program's the best thing that ever happened.
Yeah. Gives them a way to go, an opportunity out there. Like we were talking beforehand, it used to be that you didn't wrestle other girls. I mean, you're wrestling the boys. And
right.
Again, like I said, that's awkward for everybody.
Everyone.
And it makes it tough. But man, now you have your own things. We're sending girl wrestlers to state. They have their own division up there. Fewer classes, weight classes, but at the same time, they have their event. And man, what an honor. We've been sending those lady wrestlers up there.
Oh, it's good. It's good.
So out of that 85-86 team, what made that team so special?
Well, they were freshmen my first or second year. And so it was the first team I had brought all the way through.
Nice, yeah.
And we had a bunch of kids. We had quiet kids. We had outgoing kids. James Pogue, I bet never said 1 word at practice, in the hallways, anywhere. But when he stepped on that mat, he did his speaking.
Nice.
And Jeff Colinch was another very quiet one.
Oh, Jeffy Coolidge. What's up, Jeffy?
And he was so good. I mean, just so good. And the whole team was outstanding. And then they influenced the younger kids who came up with the 8-1 and then another 8-1 season. And I think the worst season we had, hate to admit it, but I think we had a 6-4 season once.
Oh, wow. So the 85-86 team, they placed 7th in the state in Class 3 at that time. That was the best finish we'd had at that time.
Right.
You had a program best 9 state qualifiers, 4 individual state placers. I'm getting goosebumps right now. You see that? Sorry. You won your first wrestling district for the school, the program history at that point. And it was the 4th consecutive Ozark Conference title.
Yeah, they had won. First year we weren't in the conference, and then that team had won conference every year they were in. And
That's incredible. Yeah, having those years around that's again having that team success. And let's be honest, I mean, we haven't always had consistent success in a lot of our programs. We've had moments of it. You know, we had the football squad that was there. We've had different segments of basketball. You know, this has probably been one of the longer years or spans of having some success. But wrestling, like we were saying, you had a long run of it, passed on to Coach Haskell. Coach Houck right now is having tremendous success. And again, we're having that consistent success. Our soccer programs had some. So having those, you know, multiple consecutive conference championships, that is a really big deal for us. It may not be for Helias and those other programs, but it has been for us. And seeing what you've built has been really good. So before we go on to that, let's just take a look here at some of the. Let me get this. Sorry, I got to get a little QR code. Thank you there, Angie Reese. Going to hide that up. So these are some of the things that we dug up on you, Coach.
Okay.
So you coach here from 81, 82 season to the 94, 95 season. Dual record of 117 and 36.
yeah, you could only win 10 duels a year back then. Only way we won 11, we had some stuff canceled because of weather, and we counted a quad, so it would take 10 perfect years to get your 100 win.
Wow.
And so yeah, we were and we scheduled as tough as we could possibly schedule.
Well, you already said you bring in teams from out of state.
Yeah.
Getting the best of the best because, again, those losses all came to those state champions that had those programs. So you had a top 10 state finish, like we said, was 7th with the 85-86 class that you went to the Hall of Fame with. 19 total state placers. 2 district championships. Got a runner-up 1 year. And 8 team conference championships in your tenure here at Ball High School.
And a couple of those years we weren't in a conference.
Okay, yeah, I remember those, yeah. That having those transitions, we're going through that right now.
Yeah.
And another one. But yeah, that is right there. That is a huge legacy for this program that again is having a lot of success right now under Coach Houck. And as you said, you know, you pass that on. And it's and the one thing I was thinking about was, you know, your name, when I talked to the wrestlers today, the people that were in, the wrestlers that wrestled underneath you, and then it was like Coach Haskell's name's always with you.
Yeah.
So how long were you together coaching?
Well, my first job was in Brookfield, and Danny had dropped it from the head coach. He wanted to go to the junior high coach. He was undefeated every year at junior high, and my first year we won district. My second year we won state. Next year we did have a state champ, and then I looked for a little larger school. So Danny was there. He mentored me, and then his wife introduced me to my wife.
Oh, wow.
We came here 1 year, called them up, said, just come up and look. They came up and looked, met with Dr. King. He offered them a job, and they took it.
Wow. Yeah. That's great. Yeah, because that's always the thing. It always talk about that and how the Noel Coach Haskell. And then when we were in here with Marty and we're going through and got pictures up on the wall of the coaches over the years, it was always kind of like together. Those names were always put on there. So it's always kind of cool to have that.
Well, I would not have it any other way.
That's awesome. And you know, and to recognize that too, I mean, so now we host a women's wrestling meet, and it's the Noel Women's Invitational, I believe it's called. Yeah. And then we have then we got the Haskell JV tourney for our JV group named after you guys. It's got to mean a lot.
That's
to
from
think about that.
And that's all because of Marty. Marty does everything right. He gives credit, and when he gives credit, instead of saying good things about himself, actually it comes right back to him, and people say, but Marty, you're also. And he's just so good at his talking, his speeches, his recruiting. The year before he came, I think we may have ended the year with about 13 kids. And I told him, we need to get back up in the hundreds like we used to be. I said, I'll give you 5 years. He did it the first year. So And when you've got 100 kids, a lot of them just have fun. A lot of them just enjoy being there. Some of them are working their way up to the starters, and then you have the ones who really want. And so you have a place for everybody, and you never know who's going to come up. One year I had a kid that came out. He never got interested in it, but he stayed out. He did everything he should. Quite a few years later, Chris Sanders was his son and won everything.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So, that that's what you look forward to.
And you created a passion and love in that in the sport.
And
But maybe that's something that he didn't recognize at the time. But in hindsight, you have your kid come on. I want him to be part of that.
it's sort of, I hate to, because we're nowhere near what they are, but it's sort of a Marine Corps mentality. Once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine. Once you're a wrestler, you're always a wrestler.
Yeah.
No one says, I was a wrestler. I am a wrestler.
Well, as a former basketball player, no wrestling going on here. But it is one of those things that you've always admired about it and seeing it. And here talking to Marty and looking at the legacy, it's important for him to have
Yes.
these plaques on the wall of the different players so they can see who came before him. And then the recognition on the walls back there for players and coaches. And it's important for the legacy.
Yes.
And because it's something you want to pass down. You want to have the group coming in. And you mentioned also having the kids that are here just because they want to be here. They want to belong. They just want to have some
They
fun.
just want to have fun and belong to something.
Yeah.
One of them went on and became a state senator. I'm so proud of him. He came out as a junior. He came from band. Kids were kind of looking at. I said, "Don't," and he was good. By his senior year, he did real well, and he still calls me.
That's nice.
So he's a good kid.
And that's having that lasting impact, which again, that's kind of one of the reasons you do these type of things.
His
right?
last name was Spencer. Big Spencer family here.
That's it. Nice. So, looking back on the wrestlers you coach, and I know it's kind of hard. And I talking to coaches at different times, they'll have
So hard.
they'll have like, oh, here's my like basketball coach. Well, here's my all-time starting five of the people they coached, or here's this, or here's that, and people they recognize. So I know it may be tough to do, but if you look at it, who would you, in your years of coaching, what player or athlete, wrestler, would you consider like kind of the most technically skilled? Do you have somebody in your mind that says this person right here can do all the moves and have all the things?
Jeff Beanick was very, very technically skilled. Colinch was. Scott Bench was. James Pogue would beat you till you wanted off the mat, and that usually took about 30 seconds. And then for the rest of the time, you were just hoping to catch a breath. So there's a place and a style for everyone.
Yeah, because I kind of think about that. Like I was talking about that big dog, because now that's always a phrase that person's a dog, and we use it in basketball a lot too. How they defend, how they get after it. Those kids that just won't let up. Is Pogue the one then that just had that fire, that grit about him?
And Pete Morris was just awesome. The Osborne boys, Stoltz boys. Stoltz's grandpa started wrestling and girls basketball. He was athletic director same year and did not get paid for it. And so he could afford to have them, and he drove the bus and everything else. So they came up through it. It's just now I'll tell you one kid. I had a kid named Lance Drabsnick. His wife's a teacher now. Lance was a good wrestler. I'd say an 8 out of 10. He would lose a few. He probably lost 3 or 4 a year. Wasn't one of our top best, but when that class graduated, they were one of the 8-1 classes, I believe. We lost something, and we talked it over, and we couldn't figure. We had everybody accounted for.
Yeah.
All the good ones, the great ones, but Lance. And we said, Lance was a leader. He would one time he got cut right here in practice, and it started splitting, and it split and split, and it was coming out, raising up, and you could see bone. So we finally got ice on it. It went down. We put a butterfly on it, and he finished practice. You know, Lance was a driving force. He didn't know it. We didn't know it until he graduated.
That, yeah, it's by that absence you
Yes.
recognize it.
Yes.
And wow, that's a heck of a statement right there for a kid that, again, he didn't think he was. You know, you didn't recognize, and then afterwards, like, wait, that was the kid.
That was kid. And the Whitaker boys, we've had so many brother Bruins come through.
That's great. So who had been do you have one that stands out as maybe the most entertaining or fun-filled one that, you know, might not always been in a great way because they might have been a distraction? I don't know if you have that. Well, is there anyone that just kind of keeps your mind like, man, that kid just had fun every time he was out there, kept everyone going?
Well, Pogue loved it, but Eddie Cedarberg, who had two boys that went on to do great,
And daughter too,
and a
right?
daughter
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
and Eddie was absolutely great. He's a great coach now, for kids, but Eddie loved every bit of it, and he was little, tiny little guy, and I mean, he went after it. Kyle Lucas was another one, just loved it, and entertaining to, you know. I can remember Ronnie Heimball, whose daughter wrestled. He was another very quiet one, but a character.
Gotta have those too.
Yeah, yeah.
Makes it memorable. So speaking of that, what's your favorite moment out of all the years from when you started here as a wrestling coach to you retired? Do you have a favorite moment?
My favorite moment probably was getting into the Hall of Fame. You know, we had some arguments, and one of the athletic directors told me, he said, "You're just carried away." And I said, "That's better than not being."
Yeah.
But they used to have those little trifold schedules.
Yeah.
Had boys wrestling, boys basketball, girls basketball, wrestling. So I went in and said, "Hey, next year I want on the front." And they argued and said, "There's no difference in the front and the back." And so I agreed. And as I was leaving, I said, "There's no difference, right?" He said, "Right." And I said, "I'll take the front." We never got the front. What they didn't know was I didn't want the front. I wanted to go back and tell the team they wouldn't put us on the front, and then they wrestled harder.
Yeah.
So thank you to that athletic director. But now we have the best athletic director that money can buy. That guy, and I wish I could have worked for him. He is the best athletic director I've ever seen. And I tell him. And when he's not doing something, I tell him too.
Old Cabby getting a shout out. How about that, old Cabby?
Oh, he's a good guy.
And now we got the wrestling program. We have it going over the junior high now too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, got that going. We got the weight room over the junior high too. Is just another thing to try and help with training, conditioning, things like that. Got it over here as well. So that I know there's a lot of push, bigger, faster, stronger. We're talking about that. Techniques are changing.
Yes.
How you train's different. You know, the time on the mat versus the time in conditioning, having that stamina. All of it's just a constant evolution, isn't it?
It is. That every year it seems like they find out something, and usually it goes backwards. For instance, now all the lifting that they're doing in colleges pretty much mimics hauling hay.
Yeah.
And I always said when the big bells came, it kind of hurt my program.
Yeah.
Because that's what they needed.
Yeah, that was, I remember the hauling hay days. My oldest son would haul hay, never liked to lift weights. But boy, he had that farm boy strong about him. Yeah, definitely different on that. Well, we're going to wrap up here, but before we go, let's just recognize a couple of the sponsors that we have going. We have Angie Reese, MVP Apparel. She does a great job getting the Bulldogs all dressed out, all the fans and everything. Appreciate that. Another one we got, Dan Farm. Always say he's not just a good neighbor, he's a great neighbor.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, great guy. Does a chain gang for Friday nights for us as well. Phelps County Bank, 100% employee owned, mypcb.com. Visit them. Bulldog fans at night even though they're bankers during the daytime. It's kind of cool. Kobe Wands, two-time All-State basketball player, does development work. Had the pleasure of coaching him when he was young. He does a lot of work with my son Ethan. I mean, just phenomenal job. A lot of people use him.
He could have done any sport.
Anything he wanted, yeah.
Anything.
Oh, could you imagine him wrestling with that kind of frame he had and the size and the smaller
I
size?
was all over his dad. His dad was but he made the right decision.
Yes,
He
he
was
did.
great.
Yes,
But
he
let
did.
me tell you, he would have been great with me too.
Yeah. Oh, he would have. When Kobe just had it all. And Carter surprisingly seemed he was a little quieter about things, but his ferocity when he was young, oh my gosh, he would get on the ground with somebody. I mean, just terrible. He just has that kind of laid back approach now. But yeah, definitely athletic family. In full bloom, man. They do the party balloon decor, backdrop rentals. We see a lot of the senior signings and events like that, so we'd love to have them. Jackie does a great job there. So really appreciate all the sponsors we have. And before we go, Coach, I do have a final question for you. So, we're talking again about legacy and the legacy that you left here in wrestling, but there's a lot of people out there that are coaching now in a lot of sports. So if you had one piece of advice for a coach, a young coach getting started, and to be successful, what's that? What are you going to lay down? What wisdom are you going to throw out there for, again, just coaches in general?
Well, I hate to do this because it's one of my secrets, but do not cut the kid in 8th, 9th, even 10th grade that you don't think is athletic because he's going to fool you. And I loved it because they would get cut and I would go get them. And you never know who is going to mature at what time and how good they're going to get to be. Jeremy Jameson, Pete Morris, all of them just kept getting better. So.
Yeah, you see that a lot just with athletes. They also, the size that comes in, professional athletes that'll blossom, and it doesn't happen until late in their college years for some of them, but it happens same thing in high school. And it's so easy to discount the kids that mature early, have those skills early. But some kids just kind of have that grit that they're kind of hidden behind the two left feet that they may have, and the chubbiness they may have.
And some kids never get any better. They're great as freshmen, and they stay that same.
Yeah.
So, but as long as they have fun, as long as school will provide a place for everyone, as long as the school will treat every sport equally, except for wrestling. I wish they'd treat them bad because it fires
motivated.
It fires the kids up.
Hey, you find what you can.
Yeah.
Nah,
Use what you got.
Exactly. Well, Coach, really appreciate you sharing with us today. Congratulations on the induction with the 85A16, the 2024 Hall of Fame. Appreciate everything that you've done in building a legacy, and take time for us to hear today.
And thank you to all those sponsors. School could not do it without outside help. Thank you very much.
It's again, we were blessed in our community, have a lot of sponsors help out in a lot of different ways, so really appreciate that. So for Coach Noel, I'm Tom Brown, and from inside the huddle with the heart of the game, we'll see you next time.